Welcome guys, my name is Tom Antos, and in this video I want to talk about my experience of shooting with the Sony FS7. It's one of the Sony's sort of a higher end cameras. It's an actual proper video camera, or you could say broadcast camera, with a higher end codec, and it also obviously has a higher price tag attached to it. I had a chance to use this camera on a film that I shot in Toronto in December of last year. And I got my hands on the camera all thanks to B&H, so I want to give a big shout out to them. They're one of the bigger camera stores in the world, so they have a huge selection. They ship worldwide, so if you guys want, check out the link to their website. So if you guys are following me on Twitter or on Facebook, you'll probably know that I'm in the market to buy a new camera right now. And I've been looking at a lot of different manufacturers out there, different models, and just kind of trying to test them out. I've had a chance to use even the Red Dragon camera. Great quality, that you can get out of the camera, but just when you consider the price, which is just out of this world, ridiculous, it's not really, I don't even think from a business point of view, it's something that I would recommend anybody to buy. I mean, unless you're shooting every day and you have really big projects pretty much every day, then it will be worth it. I guess you can pay off the camera rather fast, and you can really have the higher end quality. But otherwise, it's for that kind of a price, I would say it's kind of a little bit out of reach, first of all, for most filmmakers, and also I think just business-wise, it doesn't make sense, because by the time you pay off that camera, there's already going to be something else, probably better and out there, on the market. Also, that camera, aside from its great quality, it's not perfect camera. And if you've seen my behind the scenes of a music video I shot in November of last year called Never Broken, you can see there when I tested out the camera, it had some problems associated with it. So if you guys want, watch that video, or there's actually a series of videos there. Like I said, I've been testing out different cameras, trying to kind of decide what I should invest in next. And this camera really caught my eye because just simply when you look at the kind of quality or the functionality that Sony provides, and at the price that they're providing it at, I think they're really kind of killing the competition out there, or at least they're creating some really healthy competition in the camera market. Basically, what sets this camera apart is that it has amazing quality because it records in 10-bit 422 codecs and really good and efficient quality codecs. And it delivers that at 4K up to 60 frames per second in 4K, and it can even record up to 180 frames per second in full HD. And again, all of that is in 10-bit 422, and it does all of that at just $8,000, which is pretty incredible when you look at the competition right now, which is Canon with their cinema line cameras, which is just way out of this, like they don't even come close when you consider how much they're charging and the kind of functionality that you're getting in their cameras. Or even, like Blackmagic has some promising cameras on the market, but like for example, their Ursa camera, it's just way too big, not really usable for most kind of shooting situations, I think. Really, I think Sony right now kind of is on top of the markets, at least when you're looking at those kind of mid-range cameras that are more expensive than the DSLRs. I would say basically above $4,000, but below $15,000. Like I said, this camera at $8,000 delivers pretty much everything that I'm looking for. Like I said, it records 4K, it records in cinema 4K, so that's the wider aspect ratio. Also records in the cinema 16:9 or UHD aspect. It can record up to 60 frames per second, 422 10-bit. Also records in 1080p. Now, if you're in the market for a new camera like I am, and you have a little bit more money to invest into something like this, for example, and around that price range, then you're probably wondering, what I think of this camera and whether I would recommend it. And I'll tell you guys right now that I still have not made up my mind. And the only reason for that is no fault with the camera itself, but it's just simply because you could say in a way Sony is kind of pushing even themselves, and kind of competing with itself in the camera market. And they just released also the new Sony kind of also higher end kind of camera, which is the Sony FS7. And I'm actually just started using it on another project, so I'm kind of in the middle of comparing the two cameras. So again, you guys will have to probably wait till I'm done using that camera on yet another film, and then I'll probably have a better opinion. But if there was no other camera, if the Sony had not released the FS7, then I would probably go for this camera. And the reason is, like I said, for the price, you're getting amazing quality and a pretty good form factor. Now, it's not ideal. That's where maybe some of the negatives I would say about this camera. It is smaller and lighter than for example, like the Red Dragon camera, or for sure the Arri, for example, Alexa. But it's still, you know, if you know the kind of work that I like to do and how I like to work, then you know that I'm all for DSLRs. And basically, the smaller you can get, you know, the more features you can pack in a smaller body. I love it. I'm not the one who likes to carry a big camera rig. I know there's some guys who like that. They like the weight of it, or they just even like the way that it looks. I'm not one of those people. I like something small that's easy to shoot with. I can throw it up on a tiny gimbal and things like that. Well, that's where this camera is, I would say that's like the major kind of, the only thing that I would say is kind of negative for me. And that's because the camera, even though it is, like I said, still not the biggest camera out there, it's not the smallest either. It's not the lightest. And definitely because of, like, when you look at it, it is a little bit long, and once you throw in a lens, you know, or some other, you know, like definitely if you put in like a bigger lens, and then for example you want to put this on a gimbal, you're gonna have a lot of problems. Like a lot of gimbals, like I've tried this with the DJI Ronin, and I've also tried it with the Came 7800 gimbal, and then the All Steady Pro gimbal from Turbo Ace. I was not able to get this camera working with any of those gimbals, and the reason is because at least with the lens that I had, I was using cinema lenses, Rokinon lenses, and by the time I put that lens and then my, you know, filters and all that stuff, the camera is just too long. Now you can strip this down. You can take down the handle. You can take away the viewfinder. You know, so you can make it smaller. But even with that, like I said, I was not able to get it to fit there. Basically, the camera was just way too long, and then it was way front heavy, and I just could not balance it properly on the gimbal. So that's kind of the problem with it. And even, like I said, even the weight was a little bit of an issue too. I mean, I think that was kind of, with the DJI Ronin is the only gimbal that could take that weight, but all the other gimbals, it was kind of pushing the weight already. So that's one thing you got to be aware of. Now, like I said, you can strip the camera down. For example, you can take this top down, the top handle, and also you can use this grip that it comes with. It's an amazing, you know, extra sort of accessory that I'll get into in a bit. But again, like I said, you attach this up here to the Arri rosette attachment, and you can take that off. Like I said, you can take off the top handle, but it's not the easiest or not the fastest way, you know, way of working. Like for example, if you want to take the top handle off, then you're gonna have to use Allen keys and remove these 4 screws, and it's a little bit because of the, you know, tight space here because of the handle to work in. It takes a little bit of time. It's not the best thought out, you know, design when it comes to that, at least. So like I said, the size and the weight is a bit of an issue, especially if you're looking to use it on gimbals. Another issue that I had is the fact that it comes with this viewfinder slash kind of a, you know, like a EVF slash monitor loop kind of thing. And the way that it works is basically, it's literally like I think it's a 3-inch monitor here that you have. It's a pretty good quality monitor, you know, I'm not going to complain about that. It actually has some nice features here where, like here on the side, where you can easily, for example, change the contrast, the peaking, you can turn on zebra, or you can also, you know, like mirror the image. So you can adjust this, you know, using this kind of attachment here. You can adjust it here back and forth. You can put it even upside down. You can put it up, for example, and rotate it here for, like, let's say if you want to operate it from the side. So there's a lot of possibilities how you can attach it. And like I said, when I was shooting outside, the viewfinder is pretty good, nice contrast. The problem that I have with it is that, you know, it's cool that they offer this, but I wish there was like a tiny little like a EVF somewhere on the camera, because sometimes, like I said, if once you strip this camera down, at the end of the day, to be able to still operate it and to be able to see what you're actually recording, you still pretty much need this viewfinder. And it comes with like a little handle, and then you plug it in here on this side with this plug. But the cable for it, unfortunately, is not all that long. It's not the most flexible either. So it's not like you can really mount this on a gimbal, let's say, and then use this to monitor the shot. So that I found a little bit problematic. So at least I wish that they had, like I said, maybe like a little EVF, or like I said, even if you want to just strip the camera down and you don't want to use this, then I think a built-in EVF, like a proper EVF, would be better. Now, if you, for example, want to just, like I said, work with the camera totally stripped down, and you just want to have a good EVF to work off of, then like I said, the LCD is pretty good, but it's kind of weird. It's not that, like I said, it's kind of a big, kind of a goofy, sometimes, you know, might get in the way EVF. And that's because it requires, basically works off of this big loop. Now, you know, it comes with a good eyepiece. You can adjust the focus here easily, all that stuff. But it's just, yeah, this whole thing, like the way even that it attaches to monitor, it's kind of flimsy. And then, like I said, if you want to look at the LCD, you got to flip this. And sometimes, like if you bump this, it will actually go down, and you know, this whole thing basically will get in the way or things like that. It's just, yeah, I find like if they could actually put somewhere on the body like a proper EVF, that would have been great. So you don't always have to rely on this LCD basically. But the way that it is like I said, it's kind of pretty much you have to have that LCD attached, and in this way, as you can see right away, the camera is a little bit bigger. Now, the way that the camera works also is it comes with this grip. If you're doing a lot of documentary work, which I haven't been doing with this camera, I just shot on a short film, so it was, you know, fictional kind of, you know, usually the camera was on a tripod kind of setups. But if you're doing a lot of, let's say, documentary work, or maybe a film where you're shooting a lot, kind of handheld a lot, over the shoulder kind of shots, then this thing is great. It has a lot of functionality. You can pretty much go through the whole menu system using these buttons. You can, you know, adjust, for example, the angle at, you know, how basically you want to hold this grip, and it attaches here to the, you know, the rosette style kind of attachment. And so once you have it attached, then it's great because the camera itself does not need anything else. It kind of comes with already with a built-in shoulder pad. You can put this up here. You can operate the camera basically this way. You can, like I said, adjust the loop or this EVF or whatever you want to call it like this. So you can operate very, you know, comfortably. You can have your lens up here. You can, you know, you can work this way nicely, and the camera balances pretty well on the shoulder. So in that sense, it's very cool, this function. There's this grip. Problem I found though is just, I wish, again, it's almost like somebody, whoever designed this, kind of came up with great ideas, but just right at the end just managed to screw it. And what I mean by that is, like I said, the top handle, wish they did not require these 4, you know, Allen keys, basically screws, to be removed. And the same thing for this grip. If you want to adjust the length of this, I don't know why, like they made it, you know, basically able for you to adjust the, you know, rotation of this very easily. But if you want to adjust the length, which some people will be adjusting it depending on their size, then again you need a flathead screwdriver. So that's kind of weird. And again, if you have a lens in the way and stuff, it's not the easiest way to do it. So that's the kind of, I would say, the good and the bad about the overall design here of the camera. One big thing though, I gotta say, is that, like I said, if you're okay with those things, what's cool about the camera is that literally when you get it, you're pretty much ready to shoot. What I mean by that is, with a lot of cameras these days, you really have to have a rig built up. You know, even like I said, to attach like a LCD on, you know, for this kind of position, you would need some kind of rails and things like that, where this already comes with these rails, allows you to attach it in pretty much any position. You would need, for example, let's say a remote, you know, like a grip, if you're working with a lot of documentary style kind of, you know, on your shoulder kind of shooting style. Also, you would need like a shoulder pad. Again, this camera has everything, and really it has everything that you need. Really, the only you need is throw on your lens and obviously some media. Now, the media for this camera though, that's one thing you got to keep in mind, is it's not cheap. If you want to get the proper recommended Sony media, which are these QXD cards, and you can put 2 of them, which is nice. That's kind of how I shoot with this camera. Then this one card, 64 gig, is gonna run you around $250. Now, it's a really good, it's a Sony XQD card. It goes up to 400 megabits per second, but megabytes per second. But like I said, it's pretty pricey, and especially when you consider if you're recording in the highest quality on this camera, this 64 gig card will only get you around 30 minutes of footage. So, you know, I have 2 of these, so I'm able to get about an hour worth of footage. And I just basically, because I'm still in the process of just testing this camera, I don't want to spend money on all these, like I said, extra memory cards and things like that, unless I know I'm going to be sticking around with this camera. So because of that, like I said, you know, if you can't just simply afford to invest more into the memory cards, or what have you, then like I said, you're going to be very limited, either, like I said, in the amount of footage that you can record, or you're just going to have to spend more money. Now, the reason why this camera has to use those cards, it's not like, you know, they're not proprietary cards that Sony came up with. It's like a newer standard that allows you to basically record higher bit rates. And so that's the reason why this camera requires these cards. Something cool that I'm looking forward to, like I said, further tested out on, which is on the Sony FS7, is that it records pretty nice quality, but it doesn't record as high quality as this camera, but still pretty, it seems like a good codec, and it records it directly to SD cards, and SD cards, as you know, are fairly cheap right now. Now, these cards, they're expensive, but the advantage of it is, like I said, this camera allows you to record in 10-bit 422 in full cinema 4K up to 60 frames per second. And also it can do continuous slow motion, 180 frames per second in full HD, again 10-bit 422. When you consider what that is and how much data that is, then that's when you'll appreciate these higher end media cards. Because, like I said, nowhere, there's no SD cards right there out right now, and I don't think ever that could even come anywhere close to recording at these kind of data rates. So that's the good and the bad, more expensive media. And another, you could say, bad thing is, if you're going to be using this camera for shooting a lot, then you're gonna have to be prepared to have a lot of storage, a lot of hard drives, things like that on your computer, simply because this camera, again, it just records bigger file sizes. Now the codecs, I really like it. It records in XAVC and records in I, intra, and also in long up, which is the long up's kind of the lower end, kind of more compressed codec, which will allow you actually to then have slightly smaller file sizes, on about half or a quarter, between a half and a quarter, basically the size of the standard XAVCI. The problem with long up, though, is that because it's so heavily compressed, when you're editing it, your computer has to work that much harder. So you're really gonna need a computer with like top specs. Otherwise, you're gonna have problems, especially if you have 4K footage in long up compression. Then, like I said, the computer is gonna work really hard. HD, you don't really have to worry. Now, if you're recording in an XAVCI, the file sizes the quality is pretty much the same, just simply they're not as compressed, so the file sizes are much bigger, but because of that, your computer doesn't work as hard. So, that's the negative and the positive, you could say. But yeah, otherwise, like I said, the camera, is able to record amazing quality. The images look spectacular. I mean, captures for 14, I believe, or 14 and a half f-stops of latitude. So literally, if you record with this camera, it's almost pretty much like you're very close, I would say, in quality of recording in RAW format. So you're really at the top of the game when it comes to quality, and you can achieve beautiful, amazing cinematic images. You can definitely use this for top of the line film production, TV production, things like that. So you don't have to worry about their quality. And I think if you just look at the images themselves that I was able to capture for this film, you'll see that even at higher ISOs, this camera, like I said, captures, really, really beautiful quality. Another thing that the camera comes with, it actually comes with a battery. This camera is actually pretty good when you consider that this little battery will power this camera for almost 2 hours. Now, it is like I said, it's a power-hungry, you could say, camera, simply because of the fact that that it records, these higher codecs, and there's a lot more processing power there. So this battery, like I said, that it comes with, the fact that it's a BPU 30, you can buy the BPU 60 and I believe 92, larger sizes. Then, like I said, then they're not the cheapest, but they're not horribly expensive either. Like I said, you can, for around $200, you can buy another battery, and I would say, you'll be safe, pretty much like the bigger one. You'll be safe for shooting almost a whole day. Now, I actually, again, because I was not ready to invest in all these extra accessories really, so I did not buy any extra batteries, and I actually managed to shoot the whole film on this one battery. So the way I would work is, when I didn't need the camera, I would turn it off, and then when I did have a chance, I would just plug in the battery, quickly charge it up. The battery actually charges pretty quickly. So, and I didn't really have problems. I was able to shoot every day, like I said, just using this one battery. So if you really wanted to, like I said, right straight out of the box, you just buy the battery, the memory card, buy the lens, and you're ready to start shooting. You don't really need any other accessories. And especially when you consider that it comes with an amazing feature that I wish every camera had, definitely the DSLRs, which is the built-in ND filter. So it has the little ring up here. You rotate this, and what it really does is it, it has a little, like a physical ND filter, kind of a wheel that puts in different ND filters, and it comes with, I believe it is 3 different strengths. There's clear, then there's 1/4 NT, 1/16, and 1/64. And with that, you really, it's just a lifesaver, because now, like I said, you can shoot in the higher ISOs, or especially when you consider that if you're shooting this camera and its native ISO, which is ISO 2000, then if you're shooting outside, you pretty much would be be a nightmare. You have to really close down the lenses or things like that, or shoot at a higher shutter speeds. Where when you put in the the ND filter, even like I said, 1/64th, for example, then you can shoot outside in broad daylight with like the fastest of lenses at f 1.4 even, and you can get nice exposure. So it's an amazing feature, and like I said, I just wish every camera had that. This way you don't need those big bulky matte boxes or variable ND filters, screw them on, then attach them to the other lenses, so on. So yeah, amazing feature in that sense. And yeah, like I said, overall, I mean, the camera is amazing quality. Like I said, if the FS5 did not come out right now, or was not, basically was not on the market out there, then I'd probably buy this camera, but I'm still holding off until I make up my mind between this and the Sony FS5. But like, as you can see, they're both Sony cameras, so Sony is definitely doing something right. Another thing that I really want to talk about, that this really cool feature in this camera that I didn't know existed, and that I think a lot of people don't know about it, or I've actually heard some people kind of even in a way complaining about it, and it's actually the way that this camera shoots. So you can shoot into sort of what I would call the standard video format, or you can switch into Cine AI, which will then give you access to S-Log3 and things like that. And what's really cool about Cine AI is the fact that Cine AI basically turns this camera almost into, I would say, like a proper film, or like a digital version of a film camera. If you've ever shot on film cameras back in the day, then you'll remember that a lot of times you just shot with one particular film stack. You might have had maybe another film stack for night shots or like low light shots, but otherwise you'd be, for example, go with Kodak Vision, whatever it was, T500, or basically this depends on the sensitivity. So it'd be ISO 500, ISO 200, whatever it was. You decide on that codec, and basically it's and the film, once you buy it, it will be balanced either tungsten or daylight. That was it. There was no such thing as you couldn't change white balance like you can right now on cameras. You couldn't go change the Kelvin temperature or things like that. You literally had just one, it was balanced for one type of light, and that was it. You had to deal with it, and you had to you kind of work with the different lights that you had. Sometimes use filters on the front of your camera to change that. Well, this camera kind of works like that, as if you're working on film, but in digital format. So basically, the second you switch this camera into Cine AI, you have some of these higher end kind of quality, like the S-Log3 and things like that. But at the same time, I know some people out there were complaining the fact that they're not able, for example, to change their ISO, and it's true, because the camera really, I mean, you can change the gain, really, that's the only thing that you're changing. You can increase or decrease the gain, but you're not really changing the ISO. The ISO is basically going to be stuck at ISO 2000. And some people might think, well, that's horrible. But no, because in a way, that's how you're making sure, because the sensor in the camera in a way is ISO 2000, it just simply means that you're shooting at the highest quality that the sensor can capture. And then that kind of pushes you and makes you work with this camera kind of as if you're working with a film camera back in the day. What I mean by that is, you have to use the ND filters, which in here, like I said, they're provided, so it's a great thing. You have to, adjust the exposure, like I said, using the ND filters, using, the aperture, and using basically the shutter. So you have to use those things. You cannot change the ISO of the camera, so you cannot darken or brighten the image in that way. But also, when you consider the fact that this records in these amazing codecs, and in 10-bit 422, and in S-Log3, with amazing wide dynamic range, then that's when you know also that you can basically work like you would do back in the day with the film camera, where you're pushing or pulling the film. And what I mean by that is you're on purpose over or underexposing by 1 or 2 or even 3 f-stops, because you know that the camera has that much latitude that then when you go into post, you can get some really cool effects with it, but also it allows you then to, even if you, let's say, make a mistake and you over or underexpose the image, you can go in there and you can fix it. And that's all thanks to the fact that this camera has such wide, dynamic range. So much so that when you're actually looking at it, for example, in the monitor here, if you want to have an option, which this camera has a built-in option for LUTs, so you can load in custom LUTs, or you can use the built-in LUTs that basically convert S-Log into Rec 709. So that allows you to look at a proper contrasted image with a lot of color in it, and that's a great thing because you have that available right there in the viewfinder. Now, because you're looking at a Rec 709 image, which has usually it's around 6 f-stops of latitude. That means that you're not seeing all of the range that the camera is actually really recording. And what this camera has, it's a really cool feature, is that you can customize all these buttons. First of all, you can assign different functions, and so you can assign a function where it basically allows you to see the highlights and then basically the shadows, and it kind of changes for that moment when you press, for example, whatever button that you assign it for that function. When you press that, it will show you then really what the camera is recording when it comes to the highlights and the shadows. So you can very easily switch and you can see, are you really completely blowing out the highlights, or, for example, really underexposing the shadows. And that's a really amazing feature because, like I said, on film back in the day when you were shooting on film, you knew you had that extra latitude there, but you sometimes weren't sure, are you pushing it too much? Well, like I said, with this, it's kind of like shooting with film, but yet at the same time, you can right away see there, okay, you're completely pushing the highlights or underexposing the shadows way too much, and then it will allow you to basically, like I said, preview it quickly, and then you can make your adjustments there. So that's a really cool thing. Now, another thing that it allows you to do is, like I said, back in the day, you'd have a film stack, and it was in a certain basically balance, and usually it was balanced when it comes to the color. It was balanced to either daylight or tungsten. Well, with this camera, you have those two presets, plus you have sort of something in between. So it allows you to switch in the three of those kind of presets when you're shooting in Cine AI. Otherwise, you can, like I said, in the standard video mode, you can choose whatever settings you want. But when the Cine AI, it allows you still those three different, like I said, color balance kind of settings, white balance settings, and then later on, when you're doing post, even if the white balance is a little bit off, because again, this camera records the quality that, like I said, is comparable to film cameras, like 35mm, film stock. Then again, in post, you can adjust that white balance very easily. You can push it this way, or that way, without a problem, and the colors all look beautiful and natural. And that's because of the really good codec, the quality that this camera records, and the amazing sensor that is able to capture all that information. So, like I said, in a way, I think shooting Cine AI was a pleasant experience for me. Kind of made me feel like I was back, like I said, back in the day again, working with film cameras like I used to. And in a way makes filming easier because I didn't spend time really fiddling around, like I said, with all these other settings. I just really, I would just set it either daylight or tungsten, depending on, if I was inside or outside. And then, I knew I was always shooting at ISO 2000. And then I just adjusted the ND filter just to make sure that the exposure looked more or less right. But even then, if I was a little bit over or underexposed, I don't have to worry too much. And that's really kind of what I loved about shooting on film back in the day. There's many things I don't like about shooting on film, and I'm happy we have this technology now. But like I said, that was one of the things that I missed. And then really this way, what that allows you is to just concentrate on getting a nice shot composition, getting, proper focus, for example, on your shots, things like that. And you're not really occupied thinking about all these little settings that now all these digital cameras have us thinking about. So, like I said, Cine AI, I think, is an amazing format and kind of workflow to work in. And I'm glad that this camera does it. And because of that, I would call this like a proper, true digital cinema or film camera. Now, as far as the lenses that you can use with this camera, because it uses a Sony E-mount, as I'm sure most of you guys are aware, it's an amazing mount simply because it allows you to pretty much adapt any lens out there that's right now. And you can use even these really inexpensive like lens adapters. Like I have this one here, which is just a simple adapter, inactive. You can get them for as cheap as $10-15 on eBay, and it's, in terms of quality, I mean, it's amazing. It's not gonna, sometimes people ask me if it's good quality. Well, it's not really gonna alter the image, because as long as it doesn't have, you know, a reflective surface inside, it's not gonna create any reflections. And because of that, otherwise, you know, it's just literally just a hole. It just lets in the light through the lens. So really the only thing you might want to worry about is if certain of those cheaper lenses might not have a perfect fit, and they might kind of move around a little bit, kind of jiggle with the lens on, or especially with like a heavier lens. But this one, if you guys are interested, I'm going to provide links below in the description of this video. You can download this adapter. It works great, and like I said, I bought it on eBay, and you can find it on Amazon too for around $15. And that will work if you're using basically cinema lenses. What I mean by that is or basically any older manual lenses. So like I love using Canon EF mount lenses. There's a lot of, you know, huge glass selection for that mount, and this adapts very easily for the E mount, you know, the Sony E mount. And then, like I said, this is a Canon EF lens mount, and this is the Samyang 50mm lens. It's a cinema lens. What I mean by that is that it's fully manual. You can adjust the aperture manually. So if you have that, or if you have any other, you know, SLR lens that has aperture that's, you know, manual, then you can use these inexpensive lenses. That's why I always advise people, when you guys buy lenses, buy something that is fully manual, especially if you're planning to use it for video. Now, for photos, it's different, because you might want to have a lens that has AF built in, and then, like I said, then you're gonna have fully automated aperture. Now, another adapter that's fairly inexpensive, around $90, $100, depends where you find it. Again, links are in the description below. Is from Comlight. This one has, you know, it's an EF, but there's different mounts, different versions. This one is an EF to Sony E mount version, and this one actually is, you know, fully basically transmits all the electronic information. So the quality, again, the same, does not reflect any light, and otherwise there's no piece of glass there, nothing. So it's not going to change the quality of the lens. So if you have good lenses, this is going to deliver good quality. And what this gives you then is you can use those fully, you know, like AF lenses, and also lenses that are basically, you know, fully electronic. You can use it with this camera, and then, like I said, when I used it on the film that I shot with this camera, it's as if you had the native lens for this camera. So pretty much put any lens that you want on this using this adapter, and you can just, by using the settings in the camera, you can change the aperture. And then the last one that I would recommend is this one from Aperture. Comes with this nice little case and everything, and I already did a review of this. If you guys want, again, I'll provide the links to that in the description of this video. Basically what this is you know, there's different versions that they make. I have another one for Micro Four Thirds. This one is for, I guess it's Sony E mount, and it will adapt Canon lenses. And what it is, it actually has a built-in battery, and it comes with this remote, and you guys can see here. And with this remote, you're able to remotely change this, for example, the aperture of your lenses, because it transmits electronic information. But also you can have somebody, or you, for example, remotely, you know, let's say, changing the focus of this. So it's really great, because then you can use SLR, like fully, you know, automatic with an AF's basically built-in, you know, lenses from, let's say, Canon, and you can use those lenses and have, you know, remote follow focus basically by just turning this little knob. Really cool adapter. It's fairly inexpensive, and like I said, and it works amazingly. It has built-in battery for this, and the remote, and you just put it on the camera, and like I said, you can use this if you put the camera up on a crane or a Steadicam or something, or if you manage to put it on a gimbal, which I wasn't able to do, then you're, like I said, you'll be able to remotely adjust the focus. So those are, I would say, the three kind of, you know, adapters I would recommend. But definitely, if you have fully manual lenses, just buy this cheapest one. Like I said, cheap adapter, and it's the same quality as you're gonna get with all the other ones. It just it's not gonna allow you to use the AF, or it's not gonna allow you, like with this one, to remotely adjust the focus. So yeah, it has a lot of, like you guys can see, a lot of things that I really like about this camera. And to be honest, if you know, the price, I think, is amazing when you consider what you're getting. And really the only thing, I mean, if they could have shrunken this camera right now, just made it lighter, then I think I would buy it. It's amazing quality. Now, because of that, that's the only thing that's still holding me back from buying this camera, and it's only because the Sony FS7 is available, and it pretty much looks like a shrunk down version of this camera. So I'm, again, testing it out just right now, and I'll kind of be able to really make an honest judgment after I'm finished testing that camera, and then I'll probably decide on which camera I want to buy. But if size is not I would say, deciding factor for you guys, and you want the really top of the line quality, and you don't want to worry about, like I said, sacrificing that department, and the price tag is okay, I would say go for this camera. But if size and maybe the price tag is a bit of an issue, then you might want to look into, just as I am, into the Sony FS7. Anyways, hope my rambling in this video helped you guys a little bit, at least answer some questions about this camera. And then if you're wondering whether you want, maybe you want to get this camera or not, maybe I helped kind of push you in either direction. Anyways, that's pretty much all I have to say about this camera and my experience with it. So definitely wait for a follow-up video, when I'm done testing out the Sony FS7, and maybe then I'll do like a comparison of the two cameras together. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, if you want to get more information, whether it's about this camera or any other gear review that I've done, or if you want to just see some cool filmmaking tutorials, you can find all of that plus a lot of free downloads and things like that I have on my website at tomantosfilms.com. Thank you guys, and I'll see you next time.